I've been interested in the post-apocalyptic genre since I was a kid, you know, with the 80s nuclear scare and whatnot. That sort of started us thinking about like having multiple apocalypses. Having the second apocalypse, and there's this concept of things dying and maybe being regenerated, so there's like an ecological component to it that I think makes it a little more relevant as well. This older generation of people, or maybe several older civilizations, are depending on this youth to actually solve their problems, you know? But also, it left more room for the mutations to you know, be the star of the show visually and emphasize where the power was.
Mutation.
You're gonna mutate in this way, and you're gonna have to figure out how to do it. That's some of the stuff I love in roguelikes, is that like kind of random drama that can happen on a run that you're not expecting, and that seemed exactly kind of thematically like where we wanted to go with the game anyways.
A game with so many interchanging parts, a character that's mutating, all these different possibilities.
Had some mutations that were underpowered, and then we went too far in the other direction, made them overpowered, and then we're pulling it back slowly. And we slowed Firearm down after we slowed Exobrain down, so
okay.
I can look at it.
I just compare the two. I seem much more effective with it than Firearm.
So you were unhappy that you were effective?
It felt OP compared to Firearm.
Talk about errors we left in the game, bugs we didn't fix. There's some fun ones in there. I hope when you told the Fine 2-player folks what your biggest contribution to the team was, it was in finding exploits. He's like, yeah, you could just roll through people with this thing engaged and kill over the bosses in 2 hits. We're like, well, why didn't you tell us?
I don't really think it's exploiting.
Exploits, and then we're trying to tamp those down, or in some cases, allow them because they're fun and it's a random game, so.
We had like that sort of customization happening, which, you know, took a while to get right. Oh, my level up test. It's just randomly pressing buttons, or it's pretending to press buttons, while at the same time, so it's like right now, it's randomly activated the Chronobellum, and every few seconds, it's getting a new level. So we're leveling up to max really quickly. Like, yeah, he just activated what, Chronobellum Hyperspeed. Yeah. This has been a pretty good test. I kept it running for hours at a time.
You just have to sit here and watch this?
Well, if I come back after a few hours and it's crashed, that's the problem. Otherwise, no, it's okay. It's also pretty cool to see like all the mutations just going on and activating.
And then we also got a chicken head mutation in the game that's like a secret mutation that you can unlock, and your head is replaced by a large chicken. That's right. And occasionally chickens now use the toilet in town. That's the other big thing we put in.
If chickens started using toilets, we'd probably stop eating them. Makes you think, huh?
That's
right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, that sounds fantastic.
For a lot of the mutations that we did, we were looking at like Cronenberg stuff, or like 80s practical effects, puppetry and stuff. But also, one toy that kept coming up was the Mad Balls toy. That is just like, for some reason, really inspiring to everybody. The symbiote became like really relatable because he's got a face and he can emote and everything. I like the old, really wrinkly one. I was like, but it would never reach from our camera. So it was like a really good opportunity to make something that's really appealing and funny.
I don't know if anybody notices in game, but like it actually flips the hat. Yeah.
So when it comes time for the player to mutate, we just swap out whatever head he might have or legs they might have. Snakehead.
Oh, look at this. Disgusting.
Some of the mutations, including one called Death Row, where you have a tail and you lay these little spider hatchlings that follow you around and fight for you. Our initial implementation of that was just these little creatures, and then we were like, well, what if we put the player's head on them? You know, which is great because it's disturbing and funny.
I I don't really have a favorite mutation. I like a challenge, so I don't like getting a weapon that's like super easy to kill everything. I kind of like getting some utility ones that work well together and trying to come up with creative ways to take guys out that don't seem straightforward. Withering Cloud, light him up, now he's burning to death.
How the mutations and items and all that other stuff comes together, the combinations are so vast. You know, it's a procedural world. We're gonna have millions of combinations of how the world can come together.
But it's always great to work with Lee. I know he can handle making the art look good. It's really just on the tech side, can we handle making it interesting enough and repeatable enough and predictable enough and tunable enough to achieve kind of what we want to do. It's a number of different parts. Over here we'll see another level that generated. This one got one of these more unique rooms here. As you can see, this has this little hidden part back here. So, secrets. Yeah, the random generation I think was one of the more unique challenges, which is a really difficult part with roguelikes because a lot of your random map generation can make a map that you can't finish. That's kind of a bummer as a player. And that's always been a challenge for the team to, how do you make it provably solvable? Matt came in and handled a lot of the graphics system and a lot of sort of the procedural system we use for growing vegetation and burning fire and all that stuff across the world.
Being a sphere, setting it to like that size, and showing how like an object looks like it doesn't sit very well in the terrain, but if I turn on the terrain blending, then you can make an object like fit better. I really enjoy roguelikes, and a lot of them, they're a very elegant, like simple formula. So the worlds in Rad are comprised of lots of these tiles. This corner piece, like we might put some bridge metadata there to say, hey, if there's another piece over here that accepts a bridge, draw a bridge across.
And this one is interesting because it's not next to that and doesn't have a bridge. The player wouldn't actually be able to access that unless they had a mutation to get there. Just to add more variety to the experience. Around the time that we were starting art production, VR art tools were starting to become a thing. So this piece here is one of the rare tiles that comes up later in the game. That was a pretty quick process, and I exported that and put it into game as kind of a white box proof of concept, make sure it would actually feel good to walk around it. You can look at it in game if you want. So here is that same tile. One of the other tricks of our game is it has to work from all angles, a lot of these tiles. I sort of feel like all this sort of concept art being this very separate thing from the actual game art is slowly starting to converge. And VR tools are kind of one step in that way, but it's not just about VR, it's just about the tools being a little more immediate.
That whole game, like the main message that Lee kept driving at us was about mutation and how everything changes and you have to adapt. And I really felt like we did a good job of getting the audio and the music to do that as well. Because it's been this huge apocalypse, so there's just these massive canyons of doom, right? And we weren't doing much with them. But I kept thinking, that's a really interesting part of the game. Like, you can use it in gameplay. You can knock people off the cliff.
Jump.
And you get a feeling when you're fighting, like there's definitely a feeling of danger because you don't want to fall. And so I started thinking about, I wonder if there's a way audio can help with that gradual reverb. It's just, it knows where you are in relationship to its edge. So the farther you're away from the edge, the drier your sounds. But if you get right up to the edge, like in real life, it reverbs out in the canyon. It just feels more dangerous.
Are you guys making the right documentary? And then we're just cruising and being around for launch and launch support after that. So
yeah,
exciting.
And all that's getting laid out. But yeah, we're kind of at the end of the road. I was uploading a PS4 build to give to reviewers, and I've noticed that I had these old playthrough videos that are from about a year ago. Yeah, that's what 1.1 and 1.2 looked like a year ago. That's insane.
That's crazy. Well, it's good to see that. It's always painful because you look back and you're like, I thought that looked and felt pretty good. And then you look back a year ago and you're like, that's pretty terrible. So it's good.
But yeah, we're at the point now where it's just polishing, which is really nice because I've definitely been on projects where at this point it's, you know, there are major game-breaking things that are still happening, and you're just hoping it all gets done in time to just get it out the door. So, you know, because the other thing that happens is when you're in that panic mode, it's easy to just make another mistake. And so the fact that we are able to just work regular hours, everybody comes to work, they're ready to go, and we can just keep doing things the way we've been able to do it. I am very proud of the fact that we have not done crunch.
Red.